We've got the gift of the gab. Welcome to Irons United YouTube channel. By now, I'm sure you're well and truly accustomed to who I am, and also slightly sick to the death of my orange face, or as I'm told, better lighting tonight, so slightly better as well. I'm joined by Stell, and I'm joined by also Matt as well. Welcome back, mate. And as you probably guessed by now, I'm taking the hosting ropes for Anton tonight. And this is mainly because of the fact that I've been told I talk a little too much on these videos. So tonight, I'm going to give it a bit of a rest, and I'm going to let Stell and Matt do the talking for me. Before we go any further, on another side note, I'd just like to say I think we're all agreed with this. Well done to young Isla for operation today. She's done really well. Come out of it, all positive news from her. So well done, Isla. You've done yourself proud, and all of West Ham. So West Ham family well behind you. So as always, being a West Ham fan, there's always stuff to talk about. You know, we're never bored of anything going on. There's always some sort of event going on, either it's pissing us off or it's making us happy. But no one is pissing us off. No changes for now. Still, first of all, mate, what talking points do you want to go with first of all? Let's just what's got grinding your gears, let's say.
Well, I guess we got to mention the march, or not the march, or whatever it is, the stroll, the brisk walk, or whatever. I guess we need to talk about what happened with Gold after the Swansea game, and we have no option but to talk about what the hell has happened to our team on the pitch.
Yeah, there's loads to talk through tonight, isn't there? I suppose there's also the outcome today. That's just literally the latest piece of news we can talk about. Is the club accounts that have come out, which is always an intriguing one. We're always told that we need to spend here in areas that a lot of fans don't really appreciate. So let's get the first thing out of the way. There has been a sneaky peek. It's been banded around on Twitter and Facebook. What do you think to the line that the club have released? I'll go with Matt on this first, actually. The club released a statement, and one of the lines they used was, the club is no more financially better off than they were at Upton Park than they are now. Does that fill you with confidence that the move was worth it, or was it not?
It's a PR nightmare. Like, I don't understand why they would come out and say this, regardless of whether it's true or not. There's so many people that don't like the board already for leaving Upton Park. To then come out and say that, like, what did they think was going to happen when they said it? Everyone would be like, "Oh right, yeah, cheers." Like, don't get me wrong. A lot of people now have seats in the stadium, and they are cheap seats. So of course the money won't be as much more. Like, there's 10,000 kid seats, 100 quid. So yeah, I guess you can see there will be discrepancies, but at the end of the day, like, that was one of the main factors, wasn't it, when we left, was that, you know, this is going to take us to the next stage because of the finances it brings. But then the board have said, yeah, well, you know, it's not really actually making us any better off. Which, how could it not be better off when you're only paying $2.5 million a year in running costs? So I don't understand, where are we losing money? Like, where are we losing money? At Upton Park, they pay $2.5 million a year in policing. And they're now paying it for the whole overrunning of the stadium, but we're barely any different. But we're not spending it on transfers. Like, we lose profits every year. Like, I don't understand. Are they accurate accounts? Like, have they withheld information? They got stuff in trust funds. It's not benefited them in any way to comment on it.
It's the way they presented it. Obviously, we haven't seen the full accounts. We've seen a snapshot of what they've given us, and. You know, they talked a lot about how much money they spent on transfers. They didn't talk much about how much money they made on transfers. You know, they said they spent X amount of millions, you know, on this, that, and the other. The only money they cited it coming back in was it Pyatt and Tompkins. But they didn't mention in the snapshot. They didn't mention much more than that.
Well, I know it's last year's finances, but I'm sure I still read even last summer. When we signed, what was it, like 13 players? Most of them we got rid of again at the end of the season.
Exactly.
But even in that summer, we didn't spend any money. Like, when you balanced out the money, the players they sold, of course, Tompkins was one of them in the summer. It balanced out. They didn't spend any money. They just spent what they brought in, which is a good financial way of running a club. But you can't sit there and put yourself up saying we spent this money And then you go to the January accounts, and it goes, "Oh, we sold Payet for 26 million, and we spent 16 of it on Font and Stockgrass."
Mm.
Even there, they still made 10 million. They didn't spend money, did they?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, you're totally right. It's one of them things where the club always find a way to embarrass themselves a little bit, but they try and prove themselves right, and they do something that goes, well, you know, just you better off just being quiet. Maybe it's slightly naive. Maybe they just thought they knew what they were doing. Who the hell knows? Was there anything else due to that? I mean, I haven't read a great abundance of it, so I can't make a huge opinion on it. But was there anything else that struck gold with you there, Matt, or still regarding the accounts?
Upton Park, they only got 38 million for it. I'm sorry.
And they only made how much profit? 4 million or something out of it.
Was it 8 million or 9 million or something?
8 million,
something stupid.
And, you know, and because they said they paid off debts, but whose debts were they? Were they the debts that Sullivan? Were they the loans that Sullivan?
I think they were the debts Icelandic made.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm sure, like, I don't quote me on this because I only read it from someone online. Like last week, I was talking to someone about the finances, and he said the year before we sold the stadium, the year before we sold it, in West Ham's accounts, they valued the stadium at 70 million. But because they sold it as a plot of land and not as a football stadium, they sold it for 38 million.
I don't want to be a cynic, but I wonder how much if they've agreed on some sort of cut out of all the buildings that are going to be sold on that.
Well, yeah, how many thousands of flats are being put in there?
Yeah, there's quite a number.
And it's like from 300 grand to 600 grand.
Exactly.
Like, they're not cheap flats.
I can't believe they've sold that plot of land for 38 mil without agreeing something else that maybe come off the back of.
Well, yeah, you think straight away about the deal we got for the stadium. Like, if owners sell within so many years and make a profit on the club, then the government get money. So you'd assume that surely the owners are going to be going, oh, well, you know, these flats will start selling in soon and we'll be picking up profit of it. They must be.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's the cynic in us, isn't it? That's us being cynical because we kind of know what the board's like, you know. But,
yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I suppose you can only take the evidence what you're given as face value. That's what it is. But it doesn't. Like, I don't understand how they could have only got 38 million for it.
You've just said there still that you know, we know what the board's like, but they always manage to do something that surprises us somehow. You know, we always think they're done being as embarrassing or stupid or a little bit naive in the public eye, and they do something to twist it around and go, oh no, you're not that stupid. Actually, this is something else that builds onto that. We all know that their transfer policy is, to be honest with you, a little bit wayward. Of course, haven't aired much of it in the accounts, apart from trying to make it seem as good as possible profit-wise. That leads us on to kind of basically what I think many people are not sure about next year. The apparent transfer policy in the future, which I don't know if I'm right in this. I've heard myself and read about myself that Moyes is a definite inclusion in this, which would lead you to think that he'd be here next year as continuing as manager on his work he's doing this season already. Do we think we'll improve? Do we think we'll actually improve the transfer policy next year? My hand is to Estelle, first of all.
If Sullivan is true to his word and keeps out of it, then we got a good chance. If Sullivan is still messing around in the background, thinking that he's some hot shot in the transfer market, then it will never improve. But the bottom line is, he's still the one that's going to sign the cheque for players. So as much as he might say on the surface, you know, I'm going to keep out of it and it's down to the manager, and all that sort of rubbish. You know, it's him at the end of the day. See, the trouble with Sullivan, as we all know, he has a big ego and he thinks he knows better than most people about anything and everything. And he thinks he knows the transfer market. He thinks he knows a good player when he sees one. And the fact of the matter is he doesn't. And he's got lucky a few times. You know, we got lucky over the last few years finding some decent players. But you can't just survive on just hoping for the best that someone's going to come off good. Lanzini was a shot in the dark. He's more or less worked out. Payet was a bit of a maverick. He more or less worked out for the time that he was with us. But you can't go on like that. If you've got proper scouts searching for players at home and abroad, you should be taking account of what those scouts are telling you, rather than Sullivan thinking, I've got a name here. Oh yeah, I'll bring him in because he's England's goalie. I'll bring Zabaleta in because he played for Man City. God knows what his thought process was. So the only way it's going to improve is if Sullivan truly keeps out of it, and I can't see him doing that. You know, I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see him doing that.
In hindsight, when you think about a player of Joe Hart's stature, it does make sense to bring a player of that calibre in, and for whatever reason, it hasn't really worked out thus far. You know, depending on what happens between now and the end of the season, maybe that's different. The same as Zabaleta, but Zabaleta has been quite a good addition for me personally this season anyway. Vernon comment on YouTube says that the extra money they're spending is going on wages, which
it's partially true, because I think we do have like the 17th highest wage budget or something. If something stupid, it was like, I know it's like the 7th highest in the league, and it was like, it's pretty high, like I think the 17th in Europe or something, highest wage budget. But there's a context between giving out wages and actually giving out wages to players that need it.
Yeah.
And look at the players that are on
look at Tottenham,
wages.
and we've got a bigger. I think we've got a bigger wage. I think we've got a bigger wage budget, and that shouldn't stand. We pay more for Hernandez than Tottenham pay Harry Kane. I know.
That's what I was going to say, Matt.
You know, put that into context. We pay Hernandez more than Harry Kane.
Yeah. The issue is we're paying top wages for players who are in their 30s. You know, and Tottenham are paying decent wages to players who are in their prime, who are in their 20s. You know, and that's the big difference. You know, we don't, and it goes back to this whole thing with Sullivan choosing the players. You know, he's buying players, you know, at top dollar when he should be looking at the Tottenham model and how they build their team, how they build their squad. You know, they'll get one or two sort of, you know, high-profile players in, not that many, but they're building almost from the bottom upwards. We ain't done that. You know, we don't give our youth as much chance as we used to, and we're bringing in all these journeymen who must love it. No wonder Evra was rubbing his hands and dancing all over the place when he first.
I think he's played pretty well, to be fair. Just so.
No, I know, but he's 37 years old. You know, on what's he on?
75 grand a week.
Yeah, he's rubbing his hands. You know, I mean,
right, yeah. For context, right? I think it's Alderweireld at Tottenham. He's having contract disputes, and in the summer he's only got a year left. Bit like Sanchez and Ozil last summer. He gets paid 40 grand a week, and he's one of the best 5 centre backs in the league.
It's unbelievable.
And we're paying Patrick Evra 75 grand a week.
It is a joke. Yeah. It is laughable.
Yeah, I mean, just slightly going back to the obviously the move kind of thing with the accounts. Obviously, this comment's being made now at the moment, and there's only I think Alf, who is on our channel as well, has made a comment saying there's only £1.5 million extra on gate receipts. Any opinion on that from you two?
That doesn't surprise me at the moment, because they don't get any gate receipts, do they? Like, let's be honest. We have 50,000 season ticket holders and 57,000 seat stadium.
It's just not much, is it? It's just not a great deal. I mean,
and when you think of all the probably the third party ticket tout companies like StubHub, etc., that all have seats that they've bought that they sell tickets on for. You've got is Thompson still selling tickets?
Yeah,
they're still selling their weekend. Is it 190 quid or something for a hotel and a ticket they sell? So it doesn't surprise me we don't make a lot of tickets, because there's no tickets to be made. You know, I have a mate who's a Man United fan, and he was moaning before the game got moved. He was moaning that, you know, we gave you 5,000 or something when you came up to Old Trafford. You got a 60,000 seat stadium. You're only giving us 3,000. Like, that's a piss take. I said to him, well, that's just what everyone gets, because we literally can't give any more. Like, we have 50,000 seat holders, 4,000 match day tickets, and 3,000 away fans. Like, they can't change it until they want to pay more money to the people behind the stadium to open up the other 9,000 seats. So 1.5 million in context, if we only get what 4,000 a match day in ticket sales, probably is about right.
I'm gonna go ahead here and be quite diplomatic in the way I say this. I think that that currently at the minute it doesn't look like there was much point in moving financial wise, but there is the case thinking we have only just moved. This is only our first year and a half, more or less, going. There was also going to be sticking problems. It takes you maybe a couple of years to earn some more money out of it. But we're hearing so many reports of whether they want to buy the stadium in the end from the government and all this sort of malarkey. And it's when you hear that wages, extra money being put on wages, all that tells you is it's either free agents or it's overly, over wages, which, maybe for someone who's maybe rated at, I don't know, 60 grand a week is getting 90 grand a week, that kind of thing, which is stupid for the club to be doing. Just change the subject slightly. Just something I want to talk about as well quickly. Talking to the board and the finances and what have you, the viral video that went across Twitter and Facebook and what have you over the weekend after the Swansea game, where David Gold was, should we say, harassed on the road, having to get out of his car and try and calm down the harassers. Do we think? I can imagine your replies to me now. Please elaborate on them. Do we agree or disagree with how that fan went about his business with Gold? Should we say is the best way to put it? Stel, I'll go with you with that one, mate.
I think it was. You can understand a fan's frustration. We've just been slaughtered by a relegation rival 4-1. People are going to be unhappy. People are going to be upset. They want to vent their spleen. I get all that. Is it right? No, really. And I'm not going to talk about the whole because David Gold is 82 years old stuff, which is an issue. But it's just if you've got someone shouting in your ear, whether you're 82 or 32, if you've got someone shouting in your ear, you're not going to really sort of take in what that person's saying. It's disrespectful. It's a disrespectful approach. It's going to make all it's going to do is just antagonises. If that was a younger person than Gold, you don't know how it could have antagonised him. He could have reacted in a bad way. Not saying a chairman of a football club would strike out, but it's just not the way you do things, is it? There's got to be a little bit of decency involved. He managed to stop Gold's car. Gold actually got out of the car. Could have managed to have a conversation with him. He didn't have to shout, he didn't have to swear, etc., etc. He could have just had a conversation with him, saying, "David, what's going on?" Rather than this shout. There, all I heard when I watched that video was noise just coming one way. And it just wasn't pleasant. And what do we as fans want to be depicted as? Do we want to be depicted in that way? Do we want to be a bunch of rowdy fans who just want to just swear and shout and not give anyone the time of day? I get why that fan was upset. I understand it, but not the right way, not the right approach for me. I'm afraid.
Yeah, fair enough, fair point. Matt, what's your take on it?
Is this what we've come to now? Every time we have a shit away game, they're just going to throw abuse at the board.
And it's not as if we've only just started having shit away games as well.
I don't understand. Got
a history of it.
I'm not even going to say it's like the new fan, because it's normally like the 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and some of the kids that go to the away games. It's normally the same people that go to every away game. But we had it at Wigan. Every team has shit games, and it was a shit game. And I get that you went out there in the snow; it was awful. Yeah, fine. Then if you're pissed off, start singing "Sack the Ball" or something in the game. That's going to get more done than what that bloke did, threatening him stopping the car. But it just puts everyone in a bad light again. How many years as a club do we try and make out the fans to be better? We're not hooligans anymore. We don't run on the pitch. We don't abuse other fans. We don't abuse stewards. And every time we start building a little bit, we do something like this, and everyone goes, look, West Ham fans fucking mugging off their owners again, abusing them. It's just, you can't do it every time we lose. Losing happens it's a game where you can win or lose or draw. It's going to happen. We're not fucking Man City. We're not going to go and stroll every single game. I don't understand where these fans come from. Yeah, was it a bad result? Yes. But shit happens. It's West Ham. Like, I don't understand. Where were these people 5 years ago, 6 years, 7, 8 years ago when we were playing the Championship? Fucking losing to Cardiff City. Can you imagine where were they then? What would they have done then if they'd have seen that? Like, was it the first game of the Championship season? We lost at home to Cardiff City. I didn't see anyone fucking pulling David Gold out of his car then shouting abuse at him.
It's.
I want the ball out, and I hate losing. But there's ways to construct arguments against it.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, your point there just there, Matt, about saying, well, where were these fans with these arguments before? It's a stadium move for me. I think once you do that, once you take us out of what a lot of people consider to be our spiritual home, the bowling ground, Upton Park, it just caused that whole frustration. No one's settled yet. There's still that hot air just lingering there, and it won't go away until we, quite frankly, I think, start finding some real success in a new stadium. You know, which I think is still going to be until things are sorted out, and then there's nowhere near sorted out. Now, David Gold, there's more and more people coming out now and saying they actually think David Gold is the better one of the trio, or certainly out of him and Sullivan. And just going to make a point about the accounts again. Talking about Gold and Sullivan, pretty much those accounts say to us that Sullivan is our director of football. I mean, lucky us. But I mean, do you guys want a new director? Do you guys just?
I think they need to employ one.
Yeah, so that was
actually employ one. Yeah. I mean, to be fair to Gold, I did read. I think he only owns like 30%. His shares actually not as big. Like Sullivan's got over 50% of the shares.
Kind of like a silent partner kind of thing going on.
So he doesn't. He like even if he wants to say stuff, he doesn't get the final say because he's not the majority shareholder.
Yeah, I you know, the irony of all this is that it's Gold that's mainly received all the flack, you know, because he goes to the game, he gets out of the car, tries to talk to the fans, and yet it's Sullivan and Brady that should be getting all the flack, you know. Now I'm not saying, you know, Gold's you know, not innocent, yeah. But it's evident. I mean, you know, if we're to believe when he was asked the other week, so are you selling Font, and he went no, and then the following morning or whatever it was
literally the next day, wasn't it?
You know, and if we're to believe that he didn't know, it really just actually goes to show how little say he has in running that club. And I just wonder, you know, and I'm bored out as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm anti-board. I think they've led us a merry dance. But I just wonder, he probably knows Gold as much as we do. You know,
it sounds like it, doesn't it?
It does seem like it, and it seems to me that it's Brady and Sullivan that call the shots. And they almost are treating him like an old buffoon who just happens to be there because he's got a bit of a share in the club. Yeah. And they really don't seem to give a shit about him. You know,
like the senile old granddad just sitting in the corner.
Like the senile old granddad. Yeah, keep him away. And when he comes out and says, "I'm hurting too," do you know what? I actually believe that. You know, but how much say does he have? If I was in that position, if that was me, and I was sort of sidelined so much, I'd go, you know what, pay me off, I'm leaving the club, you know, and walk away. At least then he can become a fan, you know, without having to have all the shit, you know. But I'm not bored, but I would say it's Sullivan and Brady that are really sort of running the show here, definitely.
Yeah. Well, go, Matt.
I was going to go back to your question. I would definitely, obviously they've already said he's dropping out of transfers in the summer. Apparently, if their plans are going to right, but I would definitely bring in a director of football because, like Stell said earlier, like he runs the transfers. But even if you take him out, unless you've got a director of football who's gone right, your budget is this is what I've been given from Sullivan, who could then sign off on the transfers, Sullivan can still go, who the fuck's this guy? No, I don't want him.
Exactly. I agree.
I would agree with you that you do need that director of football.
Yeah, we do. We do need a director of football, without a shadow of a doubt. We do. But whilst Ego Sullivan is there, I don't think we'll get one.
Fat chance. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the page that we're Orange United, and we do get a lot of information, a lot of very, very useful information. But I think, as most fans will know, sometimes you just don't know what the hell is going on with that club, especially now with the current situation. It doesn't make for good reading at all, especially when it's plastered all over, public eye. It's never helpful. But talking about getting players in and bringing players in, obviously the window's shut now. We've got to just deal with what we've got. We've got abundance of injury building up. We're involved in, a relegation battle, which sometimes we seem to be, out of the mire 1 week. The next week we're straight back in it, and we're very inconsistent. Matt, what do we need if we're going to stay up this year? What do we actually need? Is it training, different methods? Is it getting certain players, certain formations? What in your opinion, what is it that we need if we're going to stay up?
I think the only reason we'll stay up is we're lucky that we got so many home games left. That is for me solely, because when we go away from home, you do not know what team's going to turn up. We go to Stoke and win 3-0. We go to Huddersfield and win 4-1. We go to fucking Swansea and lose 4-1. You just don't know what team. At least when the home team they turn up at home, the guys get on their backs if they're playing shit, and they know they will, and they just put some sort of performance in. And luckily, because we got fucked over at the start of the season, we played them away games. We've got, I think, 6 out of the last 9 games. We've got 6 at home.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what's going to keep them up. Is the home games.
I've just seen scissors in your hand, mate. So just don't get too angry and start yourself with them. just keep you safe from there, mate. Yeah.
Oh no. For me, yeah, he's going to have to start rotating the squad. He's going to have to, because I don't think we've got enough players to keep going. He's going to have to pick and choose, find a team that works. I think some players are going to get dropped that people aren't going to like just because maybe they don't fit the game. I think he's going to have to go and assess it game at game. Rather than going, this is my 11, this is my formation, this is what we're playing, he's going to have to go, right, this is roughly the formation, what team am I playing, and then pick players to fit the team, if he's got the players available. Because like we saw the Liverpool game, we know we're slow at the back, but you had Evra, Collins, Zabaleta all playing. Now, whether that's, necessity, like you could have had Byram and Antonio on the wing backs. Would they have been as offensive? No. But would they have got absolutely skinned every 5 seconds? No.
Mm-hmm.
We may literally stay up because the other teams are worse. That you're clinging on to that right now. Like it's no one in the bottom half of the division is safe.
No.
And we can't bring players in, so we've got to make what we got. We got to hope to hell that Arnautovic and Lanzini stay fit for the rest of the season. Because if they both go, if they both drop out on Saturday, if Arnautovic pulls a cruise shot on Saturday and go, he's out for the rest of the season, we're fucked. We're already down. Because we didn't win a game when he was out of the team. The second he came back in the team, we started playing well again. If they lost him and Lanzini, we might as well just, fucking write your P45 and get to the league now. Be like, yeah, we're done.
Can you pass him scissors, please, mate? I think I would use them myself. Still, please cheer me up.
I'm afraid I can't. I think looking at the league, I think that we're lucky. What Matt said, we're lucky. We've got some teams that are actually playing almost as bad, if not worse, than us. I was looking at the goal differences. Huddersfield have got a worse goal difference than us. We can probably assume that West Brom are down. Stoke are looking very, very jittery. Palace had a very unfortunate, but very fortunate for us, loss last night. So there are 1 or 2 teams down there that have got either worse goal differences or have got as bad a run-in as we have, or have are just gone like West Brom. So I reckon, I know I am optimistic with West Ham. I don't think we will go down, and I think Matt's right. I think it'll be because of our home games. But then we got this bunch of games coming up: City, United, Arsenal, and Chelsea. Now, rule of thumb will tell me we're not going to walk away from every one of those games without at least 1 point. And that 1 point out of those 4 teams might be the point that keeps us up. Because I reckon I did a survey earlier today on the West Ham Voice Facebook group and asked, which teams do you think we'll get points from? Everybody, a lot of people said Stoke. A lot of people said, damn it, who we got? Southampton, Stoke are the 2 teams that we got. Yeah, not so much Leicester. A few people thought Everton. And a few people said Burnley, but no one said Man City. Not one person chose Man City.
Shock.
But a few people chose Arsenal, Chelsea, and you can see us getting a point or two from those.
I reckon
those
from those 2 games, I do actually fancy us to get like 4 points.
Right. So
because their seasons are like Arsenal season's dead. Arsenal season's finished
already.
Bam.
Dead blood.
It is. They're not playing for Wenger anymore. They're not playing for him.
They don't.
And he's still got over a year left on his like 10 million a year contract. So he's not going to walk away, and the players aren't playing for him anymore. Chelsea, I don't know what he needs to do to get them
going. Thank God we're not Arsenal, eh? Thank God we're not Arsenal going through their.
They are literally like the toxic version of us, to be honest.
Thank God we're not trying to get into the Champions League, eh? God, imagine that.
They are the top 6 version of us, in all honesty. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but right now I'd rather be in their position than ours. Yeah. But Matt's also right. If we lose Arnautovic again, if we lose him, goodness, I don't know what's going to happen. And Matt, you said earlier he's going to have to rotate the squad. We haven't got a squad to rotate, mate. You have
to get some kids in or something because like.
Well, we've lost Byram. Apparently, we've lost Byram and Reed now for the rest of the season. So we're yet again reliant on James Collins staying fit.
James does a good end of season run though, doesn't he? So
he does. But,
he does. He always comes back for the last 10 games and plays a blinder.
But our defence is probably, it's got to be the oldest in the league, hasn't it? Evra, Zabaleta, Collins.
Rice is trying to bring down the age gap, isn't he?
Rice, and he's not getting a bloody look in defence, is he? He
will do it this rate. He'll be on the bench every week if there's no Reed now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
sorry,
go on, mate. Go on.
No, you carry on.
No, I think we're gonna stay up by the skin of our teeth, and we're gonna stay up because other teams are worse.
Typical, really, isn't it?
Yep.
We're going to be back to just saying what Stel was saying about team now. I was like, we're back to the same conundrum again in a minute with the midfield because at this rate you're going to see Czech playing centre back, so it'll be Noble and Mario at centre mid because there's no one else.
Just makes sense.
Obviously, Josh Cullen start getting run outs because we've got no one else to play in the midfield.
It's something to cheer you up, right? We've got a comment from Vernon again saying Brady is an employee. How much say does she really have in a club when she doesn't have a clue about football?
A lot more than you think.
Yeah, put in perspective, when they had that meeting a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whenever they had that meeting with the March Outlaw,
which we will get onto. We will get onto that.
The one where they put down their list of what they wanted changed. One of the things they said to Brady is they wanted her to get rid of her Sun article.
Yeah, it's a long shot.
It came back from the fact that she cost us getting Silimani on loan from Leicester because of what she wrote in their article the year after they won the title. And she flat out said, "Nope, that's my outside interest. It's not nothing to do with the club. That's my personal opinion." Well, she clearly has a lot of say if she can tell you that no, my West Ham job doesn't affect that. Because if that was any other employee and they went, "Oh yeah, I'm doing outside stuff," the club would go, "All right, you can do it, but you've got to be respectful of the club. You've got to be watching what you say. If you say anything you want, as long as it doesn't affect the club or that." But she's just like, "No, that's my job. I do what I want." In terms of football, I doubt she knows a lot about football. I have no doubt that as a businesswoman and how to run a business, she's probably one of the best, which is probably what she's employed for. But in terms of there's a reason that she works in a boardroom and she doesn't work on a training pitch.
She
Personally,
has.
for me, like,
She has pedigree in business, and that's one of the main things when we got the stadium in the first place. That a lot of business people in London were saying that it was the deal with a decade, saying they had no idea how she actually get it, and it was just one of the most finest loopholes any business person has managed to find, which says a lot about her. She's worked her way up in football. How she's done it might be a few dodgy, brand envelopes here and there. Who knows? But West Ham, she seems to be doing business wise. Doing her job pretty well, as far as I know anyway, as far as I've the information that I keep getting. She's going back to West Ham's West Ham's woeful form on the pitch, especially the last couple of games. Watford game was pretty good, but apart from that, it's all gone downhill. The injuries are piling up. We hear Bonner might be coming up, but Reeds and Byram are out now. It's hard to say really, but I mean, is Moyes out of his depth now? Is he starting to show that he's got cracks beginning to show? Because he seemed to be sort of like changing things around. And then you hear at the weekend that his record at West Ham is now, he's got the same record as when Bilic's last 18 or so games at the club. I mean, is he still the Moyes sire? Or is he still, has he been, fantastically dubbed by fans? Or is he starting to show the cracks, and is he getting enough support from his backroom staff? Just a quick question from me there, boys. Go ahead, Matt, with that one first.
It's the record. It's in Bilic's last 18 games, his record was 5 wins, 6 draws, and 7 losses. And now after the losses to Liverpool and Swansea, Moyes has now got the same record. But the thing is, let's not forget he was brought in to do one job. Let's not kid ourselves. We were all looking good when we were sitting like 11th. We were like, oh yeah, look, 3 points, we could go 8th or whatever. But at the end of the day, he's been brought in to keep us up. So that was always that was, let's not kid us, that was always the short term, wasn't it? It was always, you've got to the end of the season, keep us up, and then we'll review it. If you've done well, then you'll get a job. If you haven't, use your 2 million bonus and you can leave. I still think he's done better than Bilic would have, purely because I think that the players had lost all utter respect for the man, and you would not have got the same effort out of him that Moyes had done. Moyes has had his hands tied. Essentially, he's been working with his hands tied behind his back because, they said, oh yeah, we're going to back you in January. This is no different. You're going to get money to spend. Even if it was not a lot of money, we all got told, oh yeah, he's got 30 million to spend. Well, he spent nothing. Let's not kid ourselves. He spent nothing. Yes, he spent money on Hugill, but they made 28 million selling Ayew and Sacco. So he spent he didn't spend any money, did he? He had 30 million to spend, plus they raised another 30 million, and they gave him 11.5 million to spend, paying out a loan for João Mario and Hugill. Which he said the entire December, he said, we need a holding midfielder. That's what I want in January. That's what we got to get. And they got a Cam on loan from fucking Inter Milan. No offence, Mario's done well, but that's not what Moyes wanted.
Yeah.
Same as Bilic before him. Will he stay? I don't know. He's doing the best he can out of the situation, but just to prove his point, he had to go and sign everyone a free because he was like, I haven't got enough players.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
Because Moyes,
the irony.
Moyes and Evra never had exactly a sound relationship. It's been well documented in the media. They didn't. And there was always the story about them in an airplane airport when he threw out a bacon roll or something because he banned bacon rolls and everyone went and bought one in an airport and Moyes went mental about it.
What have we got?
Evra's professional enough. You could see it in the games he's played. I guarantee you, if that had been Andy Carroll, he would not have been as fit when he came in as Evra had. For instance, just putting it out there, nothing against them. A lot of players that came in would not have been as fit to get hit the ground running as Evra was or is, which is testament to him. But the fact is, he had to go out of his way and go to Evra and be like, look, I need you to come and do a job because I haven't got enough players. And I sat there when they brought him in and thought, yeah, you know what, that's not a bad signing. He'll sit on the training ground. He's a good motivator. He's won medals. He's won medals everywhere. He's knowledgeable. He can sit there, hold the defence out, sit on the bench when needed. Fuck me, what we a month later, and he's starting games because we haven't got enough players.
And that's why because obviously he missed, isn't he? So that's probably another reason why he's come in as a replacement for him. Stel, your opinion on Moyes, mate?
Well, was always a bit doubtful when Moyes was chosen, but I always said give him a chance. I think it was the right thing to get rid of Bilic, and I was a big Bilic lover. I thought he was great, but it was evident that he definitely had to go. I'm not so sure that the board had much choice. There was Moyes or who. I don't know who else was in the frame. I think he's. I think he's done all right. I think he's had a couple of really bad results, but on the whole, up until the last 2 games, he managed to sort of get us playing as a decent defensive team. Stop leaking the goals, although they've started coming back again. So I think overall it was right to let Bilic go, and I don't mind Moyes, and I think. But I'm beginning to wonder now. Is Moyes beginning to feel a bit of deja vu with Sunderland, where he had no money to spend? And he was promised 30 million. He wasn't given any money in the transfer window, and he might get to the end of the season and turn around and go, "What are you going to give me to spend?" And he will want the board to show their hand, and he will get that sorted within the first couple of weeks of the season ending. And if the board do not show their hand, and if the board don't get serious about spending money, Moyes won't be there next season. He will think, I've been through this with Sunderland, I'm not going through this again. And what he'd have done is Moyes would have got his reputation back a little bit, and another Premiership team that's looking for a semi-decent manager will go, "We'll take you," and he'll go to whoever. Another mid-table team.
Well,
because
Everton
if the board or
Everton fans are asking for him back at the moment.
There you go.
Big Sam,
And you know what? He'd go back. Why wouldn't he go back? And he'll go back to a club that's actually spending money. And that it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? So I think it's down to the board. I'm pleased he came in. He's done what he's meant to do so far, despite the few bad results. He'll keep us up. I was actually surprised when I saw the stats. The last 18 games were exactly the same as Bilic's last 18 games. But then you've got to ask yourself, what players has he had available in those 18 games? And he still managed to sort of grind 1 or 2 results out that we didn't think he would. So, he's all right for now. For now.
That's fair enough, and hopefully he makes it even easier on us when he goes and beats Sean Dyche at the end of the weekend, and hopefully we get a win over Burnley, who amazingly managed to win so many games. Couldn't believe that. It was ridiculous. It shows how weird football is. But anyway, coming off the pitch now, a subject that I think has been kind of like the elephant in the room with a lot of West Ham fans who aren't particularly involved in it or have no interest in it, is the march that never was. It was scheduled, and then it's obviously now officially been cancelled. I think on this group we're kind of we've all got our own opinions. We've been very diplomatic with the whole thing. We've all got opinions, and good and bad on it. First of all, I'll just go ahead and say it. I'll come to you first, Stel, and I'll go to you, Matt, after. Stel, do you think the march itself, the whole idea of it to start with, was a good idea in the first place?
Yeah, the original idea about the march was a good idea. Yeah, it was when it was bandied around, when it was mooted. I went, yeah, about time. We need to take a stand, etc., etc. And then I just started to get confused, I think, as to what it was going to be about, because it was going to be bored out, but then it wasn't bored out. And it was to get the board to listen to us, and then the board did listen to us. But then the board had listened to us before, so do we believe them? Do we still march? Do we not march? And I ended up getting completely confused, to be honest with you. Right. So I think the original idea was right. It was originally a good idea, yeah.
Matt?
A bit like Stell. I think at the original start, it was a good idea. It was always a difficult situation purely because of the timescale they gave themselves to do it. If they'd have sat down and said, we are going to march, and they'd arranged it for any point up to like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks after they'd said it. But I mean, the action group for this started like back in November or something. Like originally, I can't remember when they actually announced the march.
Right.
But the actual West Ham fan action group started back in like November. And the longer it went on, the more difficult it became. Because if they announced it at the start and they said to them, right, in 2 weeks we're going to march, they would have been able to march, and then they could have sat down with the board and gone, here are our demands. You can now see the backing we have. We're not just a load of talk. We have got fan support. Problem was, they went, here's our thing. And then they had the meetings. And obviously, when the second that letter came out from Cameron Brady, the 5,000 word letter, it essentially tied their hands, because as they said, it wasn't a march to get the ball out, it was a march to get the ball to listen. And once they gave that letter, and that letter said, we are listening, and they said, we're listening, we've done a lot of things wrong, here's how we're going to rectify it, it then became a problem of, if they march, they lose that communication with the board, and they can then no longer act as a mouthpiece for the fans, because the board will go, we're not going to talk to you now. We said we will sort things. It's not things that can be sorted in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But we've given you our action plan. It's going to get done, and you've marched anyway. Well, what was the point in all the repercussions? What was the point in the discussions? So them saying they then weren't going to march was the correct thing to do, because it says that what they should have done when they went, okay, we're not going to march now, is what they should have said at least to their followers is, look, at the moment we're gonna postpone the march. However, in X amount of months' time, if at least some of the stuff that they've said they're going to action hasn't been done yet, then we may need to look at bringing the march back, just to make sure that they are keeping in line with the promises they've made. But what they said was, right, that's it, done, we're not marching now. And it left a lot of their followers, I think, confused. I didn't agree with marching myself, but I agreed with the idea of it and the concept if it worked. And it actually, hold my hands up, it did work, because you've seen this letter of stuff that's going to get done. And if stuff does get done, it will be a big impact. All right, I think the only thing that maybe won't get done is they want like the seating further forward. And they said, well, look, I don't know if we can do it, because essentially they said it's as far as it can go, with it still technically being under the roofing. And they said, well, we can extend it further, but it won't be under the roofing. But at the same time, how are they going to extend it within keeping in the rule of they can only have 57,000 seats at the moment? Like, that's going to look really weird. They're going to it's going to be like a really slow incline all the way up. So fans might be closer, but it won't necessarily make the noise, because it's just going to stretch it out further. This is things that are going to come, but was the march the right idea? Yes. But at the same time, cancelling the march was the right idea. Because you have to show some integrity to the board to say, we respect that you've given actions and you're going to do it. But they should have said at the end of it, however, if this isn't upheld, we will be back. Because the board must know they're living on this is their last chance. Because there was at one point 15,000, if not more, people that said we are going to march on this.
Yeah.
And they've had this list now, and if in a year's time, 9 months' time, we're back at the square one again, it won't be 15,000, it'll be 30, 40, 50,000 people marching. Because they've said now, they've given out a 5,000 word letter to social media saying we are doing this. This wasn't mouthed off in a vloggers meeting in a boardroom where everyone signed off saying you can't see this. They sent out in the post a 5,000 word letter, which everyone's seen, which they will now be held accountable for.
Yeah. No, I see both points. I mean, I personally actually attended the meeting, the finalised meeting, I think it was, about the march, and it was all very diplomatic to me. I really understood the end game, everything surrounding the march and the aim of it and the reasons for it and who was involved and all the rest of it. It was really good. I think that the end game came too quick, and the reason why I think it came too quick was because the board got scared. Simple as that.
Oh, absolutely.
The board actually shit themselves and thought, hold on, this has got substance to it. People really ain't happy, and they're actually showing themselves for the frustration they're feeling. Which, for whatever's come about, for whatever result has happened, this is just my 2 opinions. Whatever result was happened, whoever wants to knock this and say it wasn't a good idea and this wasn't going to happen, it happened. Not the march didn't happen, but the end game happened, which was the board had a meeting, the end game's come about, the results come about, which means that basically it was powerful enough for the board to take notice. And no matter how many people say that they're annoyed with the board, but they don't want to do anything about it, people that did do something about it got what they wanted out of it, which was, in my opinion, for the benefit of most, if not all, fans to go to West Ham. Everyone has a different experience. Everyone is either for or against the stadium, whatever it is. But I think the people who still want to march, I understand the frustration. I understand the fact that they want to let the board still know that they're not happy with them. There's a lot of emotion involved with it, as there always is with West Ham. We're an emotional fan base. We're a passionate fan base. That's what we're all about. And, you know, hopefully, you know, none of us want anything bad to happen to the club. Hopefully, it all goes the way it should be, and there's a really good end result, and we can start to enjoy West Ham the way we all want to enjoy the club, which is you know, to just support in a loving way, and there's no bad blood between anyone. But that's an ideal world. I love ideal worlds, so we'll go with that one from me. Anything else on the march, lads? Quickly.
I think what the board have promised to do. There's a lot of good stuff in there. About respecting the history of West Ham, respecting the environment around the stadium, trying to make it more West Ham, creating a museum, the memorial ground, all that sort of stuff. I think the one thing where Brady fell on a sword was the seating. In my mind, it was evident that West Ham moved into the stadium a season too early. She mentioned, I mean, a stupid comment to have made. She mentioned, well, it would have cost tens of millions to do the seating properly. Wouldn't you have rather we spent it on the transfer window? Well, for fuck's sake, either spend it on the seating or spend it on the transfer window, but don't do neither. You know, and I think that's the one thing that sometimes, as clever as Brady is, or as clever as the board think they are, they come out with a faux pas that you go, what? you know, and that was a what moment, you know, and that struck me immediately that it was a season too early. We rushed moving into the stadium, and it wasn't fit for football purpose, and that was a shame, because up to the time when I read that letter, when it got to that bit, it was like, well, you just fucked it up. You know, that was the bit where she messed it up for herself. Having said that, you know, all hats off to the action groups that got involved, because, yeah, you're absolutely right. We all moan about it. They tried to do something about it. And I'm with Matt, you know, at the point where the board said we're listening, you know, it was the right thing to do to call the march off. What's got to happen now is that the board have got to deliver. And I reckon if we're in this situation this time next season, that we're struggling, we've not bought players in, spent proper money in the transfer window, etc. If we don't do that, I reckon there'll be another movement, and it'll be much, 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 much stronger than this one, because there will be 15 to 20,000 fans that will march on the board.
Yeah, possibly. There's a comment just coming in, and it says the Bobby Moore tribute. Is that just to keep the potential march off? In your opinion, lads?
What I heard, actually, it's not. From what I heard.
Okay.
I saw a discussion on Twitter between someone who was asking the same sort of thing, and they were asking it to X. And X said that the board have had these plans in place since the start of the season. And it just so happens that, obviously, they did the shirts at the Liverpool away game. But this is just the nearest home. This was the next home game after the official anniversary, so that's why it was in place. I mean,
still.
I can't. I hope the board aren't that callous enough to sort of put it on with Bobby Moore and just decide on a whim that it just happened to coincide with the march. So I'm with Matt. I think I think it's just I think we're right to celebrate Bobby Moore, and it was just a coincidence that it happened to coincide with the march.
Yeah, I think hopefully there's nothing callous in it. I mean, I know the board can be, as we all know, they are. I think Alf's commenting as well on the video saying he's just as confused as the rest of us about the march and the way it's all gone around, and the end game and the reasons why. But I think we all kind of know the gist of what it was all about. Just a quick mention before we forget that David Gold, as we're talking about the something to do with the board, he's on the West Ham Ways podcast, which I think gets released tomorrow. So that should be interesting. He talks about a variety of different subjects, apparently, of course, including the video he hit after Swansea game. So, I mean, are you looking forward to that, boys? I mean, I take it you're gonna tune in.
I think he. I've seen some stuff on social media and people were moaning about him doing it, but personally, I think he deserves credit for it.
Yeah.
Like, we're always moaning, like the board don't come out and talk to us as fans. Well, they're not going to come out on a podium and sit there in front of 50,000 people standing on the grass outside the stadium talking to us. So this in theory is one of the closest things we're going to get. And especially after, like you said, the stuff at the weekend. Now, we won't know what's been said until we hear it. I think it's either really late tonight or, like you said, tomorrow morning. But the fact that he's actually gone, you know what, I'll hold my hands up, I'll come and talk to you. Surely we've at least got to give him... If it comes out tomorrow or tonight and we listen to it and it is utter bollocks, then you can sit there on Twitter and moan at him. But people are jumping on the guy before you've even heard a word out of his mouth. Like, you've got to give him some sort of benefit of the doubt. I mean, let's be honest. Sullivan would never do it.
No.
Like, let's be honest.
No.
You'll never see Sullivan doing it.
No.
Because Goldie's actually a fan. So he's been invited on a West Ham fans podcast to come talk. And he's gone, yeah, I'll come talk about West Ham.
Yeah, and fair dues to him, yeah. I won't be listening in on it, but I'm sure I'll get all the highlights from you guys.
Yeah, probably will do, actually. We'll probably talk back end of it. You'll get a lot of messages from us, certainly.
They're talking of, can we go back to Bobby Moore for a second? There's
Please.
I can't remember where it is, and I'm trying to wrap my brain because I can't access my internet. But there's a Bobby Moore tribute happening. I think is at the National Gallery or somewhere like that. If you guys Google it, it's actually happening. Where there is some old footage and photos, etc., of Bobby Moore in his heyday. So want to pay a visit to that. I think it's at the Portrait Gallery or the National Gallery, somewhere like that. I'll Google it later and I'll put it on as a comment later for people.
Yeah, great stuff. But yeah, talk about comments. Please get your comments in if you're still watching or if you're enjoying the show and you want comments read out, you want answers from us guys, opinions and rest of it. Please get them in. I can't see us being on for a hell of a lot more longer, but the time we are on, we do want to get your opinions in and talk about them because, quite frankly, I think my opinions are most of the time. Yeah, no, it's something else. I think what we've seen, especially since the moves happened, there's a lot of things of pro-move, anti-move, pro-board, anti-board, whatever you want to call it. There seems to be a distinction at the minute, especially on social media, with a lot of fans saying they've never known it in all the years. You got season ticket holders of 50 plus years and what have you, giving their experiences of when we fell out as fans or whatever, we had arguments and all this sort of stuff. But apparently there seems to be a gist. I've seen it myself as well, I'm not going to lie, that they reckon it's the worst, fan base is becoming more and more divided, basically, than it's ever been before. Well, do you agree, guys? I mean, and what specific reasons would you give for that being the case? Are West Ham fans united? Is basically what I'm saying.
I think West Ham. I think there is. I think sometimes we need to learn to talk to each other and not just because you can still the guys in the chat, we don't all agree on the same thing. You have a debate, you talk. You don't have to throw abuse. But the problem is, in the context of this probably could be like the worst, maybe with reaction the fans have had with the ball, they've had with each other. But you've got to take it in the context of social media. Yeah. 10, 15 years ago, if we got pissed off at a game, and if we were 10 of us were sitting, and the guys in the chat were sitting down the pub having a pint, and we got pissed off, and I walked home, and I went, oh, you know what, I fucking should have said that. Well, guess what? I've got to wait until we meet up for the pub next week to say it again. Now, I can just fucking get on WhatsApp and be like, you fucking stupid cunt, I should have said this. It gives social media gives everyone a platform. It gives you a platform to talk no matter where you are. So that just exaggerates everyone's freedom of speech. So it doesn't mean people weren't thinking about this sort of thing. But I'm sure, like, you know, people hate the Browns, even to the extent the Icelandics. The Icelandics nearly made us bankrupt. But Twitter and Facebook weren't as substantial in a basic commodity as they are now. Like, so you didn't have that voice. You didn't, like, you had to listen on the radio and sit there, listen to Talk Sport, and then get on your phone and ring up, and that was your only way to give your opinion
wireless
on what was happening
during the war.
I know, mate.
Yeah,
but, you know what I mean?
Oh, still.
You know what I mean? Like, unless you were down the pub with your mates on a Saturday watching the football, or you catching up in the week, you didn't have that platform to say it. Especially like, I talked to someone. He's like, "Oh yeah, I talked to some bloke the other day. He was asking about the channel. He was asking for times to watch it, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, mate. It's like normally like 8 o'clock on a Wednesday or a Thursday, depending if we're going live or it's recorded." And all right, and I clicked on it, and the guy's in like Tasmania. Like, I couldn't have done that 10 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that now. Like, you could do it now, but you couldn't do it then. So the fan base is more divided because of social media, but we're divided over common causes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. That's what you got to remember, is that everyone, the general consensus now is that everyone wants the ball out, but everyone's fighting over how to do it. That's the pettiness we're at. Yeah. That is essentially the level we're at.
That's where we're at. Yeah. I think we're united in supporting the team. Well, even though
you can never question.
Yeah,
question.
Even though we'll slate some of our players when they're not performing.
I personally watch Arsenal Fan TV, and they said the same thing. They said that if we weren't slating you, we wouldn't care. Like, if you're playing shit and we're not slating you, it's because we don't think you're good enough and we don't care about you as a player. They said because there was a big thing the other week about Hector Bellerin slandering them all over social media. He'd done an interview. And he said they're just in it to make money. They're not real fans. And they were like,
"Oh, really?"
He was like, you only do it as a negative. You never praise us. And they said, well, we want to praise you, but for one, the success isn't there. But he said, but if we're criticising you, yes, everyone loses their temper and you get mad, but it's because we care. If we didn't care, we wouldn't do it. And I think that in itself is like a really good piece to say. Like, if we criticise you, like, I remember people getting slaughtering Arnautovic when he first turned up because of how bad he was. But it's because I felt I did. I knew he could get better, which is why I was pissed off at him, because he's not running, he's not putting in the effort. But if you didn't care about him, if people didn't care, they wouldn't say it. They do it because you can do better. We want you to do better.
We care. I see a bit of Arsenal Fan TV as well, and it's kind of like, the gist of it is the fact that they like Arsenal to lose because they make more money out of it, which is a highly sceptical opinion, not an opinion that I share personally, and I don't know about you two if you share that opinion either, but that's Arsenal Fan TV.
No fan wants their club to lose. No fan does.
Of course it don't. But we got realistic, and being West Ham, we don't win that much, and it'd be lovely to win.
That's the thing that confuses me as West Ham fans. I know we shouldn't be in a relegation battle, but like every week that we do lose, people on social media, straight away.
Do you know what I think that is? Honestly, what I think that is? I think it's because when we moved to a new stadium, we were promised world class everything, and even though in a lot of ways it was a pipe dream, I was thinking, no, that ain't gonna happen. Surely you're just lying, sort of thing. It was like, well, okay, now we're gonna make sure that we get in this. So when we do lose, we're gonna moan twice as hard as we did when we were at Bowling. And in some ways, I think that's actually quite fair. To be fair, I think it's it's a valid point, and we're living in a world now where the minute something goes wrong, bang, social media is lit with complaints and what have you. So moving on just slightly, got a question from Alf coming in. Basically, if you were the manager, I'll put this to you first, Stel. What would you be saying to the players to motivate them and get them playing better, essentially? And would you change the formation? And what would you do with the formation if you changed it?
What would I be saying to the players? I'd be telling them to buck up. I'd be telling them that they're playing for their careers. They're playing for their West Ham careers. Now, if a player doesn't really want to be there, drop them, just drop them, and threaten them with that. And I think that's the. I think Moyes started that. I think Moyes got a problem because I said earlier he hasn't got a big squad to choose from. So he kind of doesn't have much choice but to play certain players. But Matt mentioned it earlier. Maybe we should start getting one or two of the youngsters in there. We've got this Haksabanovic that people keep raving about. Not seen him this season. No. We've got Cullen, who people reckon he could be the next Mark Noble. It might be scary throwing them in, but at least the established players will know that. This is what Bilic had a problem with. He just kept picking players that weren't fighting for the cause. I mentioned in the review last week against Swansea when Antonio came on, and I said he looked like he couldn't give a toss. And I think the players just need to. They're not scared anymore. They've gone back to what they were like under Bilic, because they know that then this time round they know they're going to get picked because there's no one else to choose. In terms of formation, I hate to say it, but we can't risk going with a 4-4-2 or a 4 whatever at the back. I think we're going to have to persevere with a 5 because as much as we don't like it, we've got no choice but to try and be more defensive and try and hit players on the break. I can see you nodding, shaking your head there, Matt. But
no, I'm just thinking.
I just don't think we've got the players to play a 4 at the back. So it worries me if we did, because we've not got natural wide players. We've not got a big enough squad to play a 4-4-2. Or the right players, should I say, to play in a 4-4-2. So what can he do? It's not a lot.
Yeah, no, yeah.
There's not a lot. That was a shit answer to a good
question.
No,
it's your answer, mate. Your answer. It's never a shit answer. It's your answer. You've got to think. Matt, he's not really.
I'm just thinking. What would you say to get him to play better?
Yeah, that's one part. Part 2 is what formation.
It's part a World 3 Cup year. It's a World Cup year. The club's got. Well, for starters, you're playing for the club not to get relegated. Do you want a relegation on your CV? Because that will automatically drop down your CV. Clubs aren't going to look at you and go, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's get him." Well, why? Oh, he's good. Was he? He got relegated last year. Automatically, it devalues you as a player.
Will they say that about Arnautovic? Will they say that about Lanzini? Will they say that about Hernandez?
Did they say that about Roger Johnson? We signed him. No.
Relegated Johnson.
Yeah.
But that was just stupid. There are some players that will escape the rule because they've had a good good season. But if you've had an average season in a poor team, then I don't. It depends on the player.
You're talking about someone like Kouyaté and Antonio.
Yeah.
They've
had a poor season in. Let's say we get relegated. You say you've had a poor season in a shit team. Where are you going now? Probably nowhere, because no one will probably take them. They'll probably be playing in the Championship next year. Look forward to Barnsley away, lads.
Yeah.
It's
a World Cup year. I saw Antonio barking up the other day. He's saying he's hoping that he can do what he usually does, and it's a bit of form and sneaks into an England squad. I'm sorry. What's he been smoking when he's been out injured?
He picked worse players. I'm sorry.
He's got to be informed. Like, I know what he's saying because he can play out. He's someone useful in a World Cup squad because he can play a multitude of positions. Like he is essentially a winger. He can play either side. He can play as a forward and he can cover at right back. So he's someone you want. But he's not someone you pick when you're not in form and you're playing poorly. And you're not putting in effort. So you say that to them. You're playing for a World Cup place. You're playing for your own personal pride, and you're paying for this club. Like, we are paying you to play for this club. These fans go everywhere, and they know that. You seem like people like Arnautovic acknowledge that now. Like, that's one thing Moyes did. In terms of dropping people, I think, like we said, there's not many he can drop. He can slightly rotate the squad and say, "Oh, you've had a bad game. You're not playing the next game." If there's someone there to swap him with, then it might mean they get benched instead and they sit on the bench.
Yeah. No, there's
formation, I think we're kind of you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because we don't have enough centre backs to play three at the back. We don't. We've been playing the whole time we've played three at the back. They've played Creswell, the left back. As part of the back three. They don't have enough strikers, and they've converted Arnautovic into a striker and Creswell into a centre back, which is why we had to go and sign Evra because then we didn't have a left back. So your option is if you play four at the back, you have to play with a back four that doesn't attack. Like you don't play like Bilic play with a back four where the wing backs get forward. You say you are not a wing back, you are the right side of a defensive four. You do not go. You just sit there. You give it. You put like Evra and Zabaleta there and say you ain't got to worry about going forward because you're not going beyond the halfway line. You're just defensive. That's the only way you could then play a back four, which would then at least free you up a bit that you had some sort of cover at centre back. But even then, what did you then do then? Play an Abic up front on his own and put five in the midfield and try to pack the midfield out. Maybe that'll work.
It's just like putting, square pegs in round holes quite a lot of the time with West Ham. If it was me, just quickly, I'll give my little answer. Basically, I think for the way we're playing, when we play three at the back, we're playing far too deep for me anyway. So, the chances of our attacking options getting the ball is quite infrequent. You either part the bus, as we've got so many injuries, you just hope for a knock-on or a counter-attack style play, or they listen to Adrian for once and push up and try and attack as much as they can. But I know, Matt. It's one of them things where I
know you said Adrian, and I generally don't think he'll start the next game.
Let's not get on that.
How long we got?
I'm sorry. I'm not going for a preview or team or anything. But literally, Adrian, I have to say because I did a preview X amount of weeks ago, and people said about Hart, and I said you can't pick Hart because Adrian's not making any mistakes. And lo and behold, the last couple of weeks he's made mistakes and we shipped goals. So
did you say they're mistakes?
They're stuff that other keepers have done with, and. Some is like, was it the goal against Liverpool when he literally he mucked up a goal kick, didn't he? And it comes straight back past him and he ran out and missed it. Yeah,
it's a tough one still.
Well, you know how much I really dislike Hart.
I thought you loved
him. I'm just saying that for a manager, David Moyes has no allegiance. Don't forget, David Moyes has only been here since November. David Moyes has no allegiance to either goalkeeper. It's not like it was Sam Allardyce who brought Adrian in and he played him for 3 years as his goalkeeper, and he was like, "He's my goalkeeper." David Moyes' job is on the line more than anyone else's.
Have you seen? Okay. I'm going to throw a question to you. I'm going to throw a question to you guys. Have you seen more in Hart or more in Adrian this season? Which of the two would you have more confidence in overall?
Adrian. I always say.
Adrian, it would still be Adrian. For me.
Likewise, and I hope.
Is it?
But I hope Moyes will think of that. Yeah, Adrian has made a couple of mistakes, but I hope Moyes will consider the whole season rather than just the last couple of games.
The problem thing with me as well is I find it really convenient that in the last two games, or last couple of games, Adrian started making mistakes. And we're now getting to the back end of the season where it's like, Joe Hart could play 8 games and get himself back in that England squad. Like, I just don't understand. Like, as Man City had a word, as Joe Hart had a word, and it's like he's going to play the last 8 games just to make sure he gets his arse on that plane for Russia in the World Cup.
It's not about England, is it? Though it's about West Ham.
We'd like to think it is, but I think there's motivation for players is. I'm sceptical with modern footballers.
Motivation is the thing. Competition, like Joe Hart played. And then they said to Adrian, he had the Man City game, right, we still lost, but he said, this is your chance. He played well, and he stayed in because he played well. But Adrian does always seem to have a tendency at some point every season where he has a bad spell, he gets dropped. And another manager, the other keeper comes in, and Adrian comes back in and plays well again. It seems like he needs to be dropped to get his focus. Yeah, to get his focus back on game again.
Possibly.
But the problem is, if he gets dropped and Joe Hart comes in and Joe Hart plays a blinder, then he's done what Adrian did and he won't get dropped again. And I wonder if that would have done the same to Joe Hart though. Joe Hart's been dropped for so long. If he comes back in, he knows his England place is on the line. Is he going to start playing well?
It's what I think the difference is with these keepers is I think Adrian's a better communicator than Hart. You know, so it's not just about how well the keeper individually plays. It's about how he communicates with his team. And all I've heard about Hart is that he barks at his players rather than communicates with them. And I don't get that same impression about Adrian.
Because I always thought that he was a good communicator, but from what you hear, he's like he doesn't. There's always ways of communicating.